for U.S. President is Marianne Williamson. She's a best-selling author, lecturer, activist, and Democratic candidate for President of the United States. She's worked with thousands of individuals as well as large and small groups in transforming crisis into opportunity. For 35 years, she's been helping people heal from problems in many ways have been created by an irresponsible political establishment. She has an up-close and personal understanding of the impact of bad policy and the average American's lives. Please give her a wonderful, warm welcome to the Cedar Corridor.
First District Democrat of Iowa. Thank you, Catherine Chris, thank you. I want to talk to you tonight about how we're going to beat Donald Trump. We're not going to beat him with a political argument. We're not going to beat him with an economic argument. I respect Tom Steyer and all of the things that he was saying. Tom said we're going to beat him with an economic argument. The economy will either be good or the economy will be bad. But even if the economy is good and it's even going to be harder, or even if the economy is bad, I don't believe we're going to beat him with an economic argument. I don't even think we're going to beat him with a rational argument. We're going to beat him with a moral argument. That is how we're going to beat him. Now I'm going to tell you what that argument is. But first of all, I want to tell you why it works. I want to refer you to a story in the Bible of David and Goliath. Now, David and Goliath is obviously a biblical tale, but there have been many secular, psychological books about the mythology of the story. Even the very well-known writer, Malcolm Gladwell, wrote a book about David and Goliath. In the story of David and Goliath, the greatest warriors of the Israelites were cowering, afraid. They were the greatest warriors that the nation of Israel had. And yet Goliath was a giant. And so the warriors were afraid about the battle that was going to be happening the next morning. Now David was not a warrior. David was a shepherd. David was a musician. David was an artist. David took care of people and sheep. And he was there to tend to the warriors. He was there to provide them food. And seeing how afraid all of the warriors were, he said, I'll do it. And they said, you'll do it? And he said, yes, send me. For those of you who know the great gospel tune, he said, yes, send me, I will do it. Now it's very interesting that King Saul, seeing that David was prepared to go into battle with Goliath, said, well, the least that I can do is give you my suit of armor. And David put it on for a moment, and then he took it off. And he said, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it my way. And we know what happened. We know that Goliath was laughing. We know that all the giants were laughing at the thought that David could defeat them. But we know that David had a slingshot. Now let's look at what David did with that slingshot. He hit Goliath in the one place where Goliath had no defense. And that is how we are going to defeat Donald Trump, in that one place where he has no defense. He has no conscience, he has no empathy, he has no ethics, he has no morals, and we're going to shoot him right in that place. And that is how we're going to do it. Now, it has been said by quite a few Democrats that the president's policies are immoral. And I agree with that. But in every other area, the Democrats understand that it's not enough to just say what we're against, we also have to say what we're for. So on the moral argument, the same is true. We can't just say the president's policies are immoral, we have to stand for a moral politics. And that is why I'd like to present you the 4 pillars of my campaign, which I believe are the pillars of a moral politics. One has to do with economics. The same economics that most Democrats have and that all progressive Democrats have. 40 years ago, we transitioned into an amoral economic capitalism, an amoral economic system, which posits that a corporation's fiduciary responsibility to its stockholders matters before and above any other moral or ethical concern, at the expense even of other stakeholders. So as long as the stockholders got their money, that was all theoretically that the American corporation was supposed to have to care about, even if it's at the expense of the workers, even if it's at the expense of the community, even if it's at the expense of the environment. And in a way, all Americans are stakeholders in what happens in corporate America. That amoral economic system, as we well know, as every Democrat is clear about, has corrupted our government. It has corrupted our government because of the undue influence of money, and it has hijacked America's value system. And that is why the politics of the Democrats have got to stand not only for the economic argument, but for the moral argument, and take a stand for the injustice, the moral obscenity of an economic system that does more to help the rich get richer and makes it harder for everybody else to even make it through the day. That is a moral wrong. It is not only an economic injustice, injustice itself is immoral. We want love, and where there is no justice, there is no love. Now the second pillar, that is why, of course, like every other Democrat, I want to repeal the 2017 tax cut, 83 cents given to the very richest among us and the very richest corporations. Why I want to put back in the middle class tax cut. It's why I want to stop those subsidies, $26 billion to oil and gas in 1 year to the fossil fuel companies. Ladies and gentlemen, this is immoral. This is wrong. This is why we need to have the $15 an hour minimum wage, because it's immoral to make people work 2 and 3 jobs in the richest country in the world in order for them to even get a modest 2-bedroom apartment. That is why we must do all of the things that we know must be done in order to bring economic fairness to the people, because it is immoral. An amoral economic system has and always would have immoral consequences. We stand on the moral argument. Secondly, we have to look at our own house, and we have to stand for some things that maybe Democrats aren't always used to standing for. And that has to do with what is happening to America's children. We have millions of American children, and yes, they are here in Iowa too, who are chronically traumatized. We have millions of American children who go to school every single day in schools that don't even have the adequate school supplies with which to teach a child to read. If a child cannot learn to read by the age of 8, the chances of high school graduation are drastically diminished. The chances of incarceration are drastically increased. Millions of these children are hungry, ladies and gentlemen. We have 43 food insecure people in this country. The Democrats should be saying we will end poverty. The Democrats should be saying we will end hunger in America. It is the moral thing to do. We have elementary school students in the United States who are going to classrooms every day and asking the teacher, do you have food for me to eat? We have millions of American children going to schools and classrooms so chronically traumatized by the violence in their homes and in their neighborhoods that psychologists tell us that they have a PTSD that is no less severe than the PTSD of a returning veteran from Afghanistan and Iraq. It's not enough that we say we don't like that you put children in cages. We have to say we will not allow either the children who are already here in this country to be chronically neglected the way we are. We stand up for America's children. It has nothing to do with us. As we will stand up for reconciling America with our past. It is a principle of transformation, psychological, spiritual, moral. You cannot have the future that you want, whether you're a nation or an individual, unless you're willing to clean up the past. And that is why the Democratic Party should stand for more than race-based policies. We should stand for genuine atonement. We should stand for reparations. We should stand for reparative justice, not only to the descendants of slaves, but also reparative measures with the Meskwaki and other Indian tribes throughout this country. And I'll say to this president, Mr. President, the first thing I'm going to do when I get in that office is take down that picture of Andrew Jackson. It is an insult. He will have nothing to say. And the fourth has to do with our national security. This man, for the sake of $350 billion in an arms sale to Saudi Arabia, in a way that would make our grandparents roll over in their graves, ladies and gentlemen, we are providing, for the sake of that $350 billion in arms sale, we are participating through aerial support in a genocidal war in America. We are doing this. We are participating in a genocidal war that the Saudis are prosecuting against the Yemenis. Tens of thousands of people have died, including children. Where are the Democrats, ladies and gentlemen? That is immoral. We stand for the moral thing to do. We will bring moral leadership back. And that's how we're going to beat him, because on all those things he will have nothing he can say. And I believe that there are people all over this country who believe that the moral core of America, and by the way, this is not just Democrats. This is not just lefties. There are people who are conservative, there are people who are liberal. There are people from every group. We have to worry not only about the big supporters of Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't win last time just because of the people who passionately supported him. He won also because of the people who did not vote and the people who voted for Jill Stein. If the president wins again, it will not be just because of the people so excited about Donald Trump. If he wins again, if he were to win again, it would be because of too many people not voting and too many people voted for a third party. Ladies and gentlemen, we must give people a reason to vote for us. If all we talk about is how qualified we are, we were qualified last time and we lost the election. We need to be real. We need to be deep. We need to be honest. We need to talk about the fact that America is involved in passive child neglect of millions of American children. We have to talk about the fact that we have allowed our moral leadership to completely be eroded. We have to talk about the fact that there's a deep psychic underbelly regarding race, regarding Native Americans. We should not be afraid of the truth. Because let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, when we speak with conscience and we speak with genuine moral principle, you come out every time a Democrat. Traditionally in this country, the right side of the political spectrum has traditionally focused on issues of private morality, abortion, and so forth. But traditionally, the left side of the political spectrum spoke about issues of public morality. Tax injustice, economic injustice is a moral issue. War and peace is a moral issue. Environmental degradation, destroying our planet, what it's doing to the food, what it's doing to the topsoil, what it's doing to the farmers, what it's doing to future generations, this is a moral issue. International relations, this is a moral issue. Over the last 4 decades, however, the conversation in the Democratic Party, unlike the Democratic Party of my youth, has become so corporatized, so over-secularized, so much about external things, but not about values. And no, it's not enough to come in now and say, we're going to talk about values, we're going to talk about freedom, we're going to talk about values, we're going to talk about soul. No. You got to do more than talk about it. Trust me, I've had a 35-year career on this. You got to act on it. And once the Democratic Party does more than talking about it, because it seems to work in new focus groups, and instead puts forth some policies which has some moral spine, we'll do more than beat Donald Trump. We will win the soul of this country back. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I supposed to leave? We're out of time?
How much time? She's got a minute. Take it.
Okay, 1 minute, so I will talk very quickly about pharmaceutical companies. How are we going to break the greed of the pharmaceutical companies? $284 million they spent last year on lobbying Congress. To give you a sense of what that means, fossil fuel companies lobbied Congress last year to only $125 million in comparison. We have 2 full-time pharmaceutical company lobbyists for every member of Congress. And you know as well as I do, they're not there doling out all that money just to be nice. They want a quid pro quo. And they got their quid pro quo when they got our own Congress people to act against our interests by declaring several years ago that the U.S. government could not negotiate with Big Pharma to lower drug prices. That needs to end. And for that, we're going to need more than a Democrat in the White House. We're going to need Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate. In addition to that, we are going to get the Food and Drug Administration back for the people of the United States. 75% of all drug reviews come from Big Pharma. That is how we got the opioid crisis. Where the hell was the government when all that was going on? Where was all the regulatory oversight going on when big pharmaceutical executives knew what they were doing, over-manufacturing, over-prescribing, and over-marketing opioids? What was going on there? When I'm president of the United States, Boeing will not have an over-influence on the FAA, and oil and gas and chemical companies will not have influence at all on the EPA, and Big Pharma can stand in its own lane because the National Institute of Health and the Centers for Disease Control and the FDA will be working for the people and the people only.